be here now. Just be here now.
Hey everyone, it's Raghu and I'm back with Mindrolling with Oteil and Mike. I'm acting like, I've known these guys, for the last, 10, 20 years, but it's fairly recent and I'm really happy to have you both here. I was on, what's the name of the podcast? Comes a time, right? Yeah. That Dead song. And I said, hey, let's do this again. We'll do it on my channel. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. We've been big fans, so we were kind of geeking out right before this. You helped us a lot through the pandemic, man.
You absolutely did. You did. Your voice. What did I say last night, Oteil? That Raghu and Michael Mead are my driving podcasts because you're good for traffic. You're good for the brain in traffic.
Good for traffic. Can I get that as a testimonial? That's cool.
Absolutely.
You're good for traffic, man.
I said I need a speaker on the top of my car to play to the rest of the people in traffic. That's what we really need.
How did you guys get? Okay, so Mike does stand up and all sorts of other comedic type things.
Yeah.
And Oteil is a musician. Many of you know of him because of The Dead and Allman Brothers, actually. But currently, of course, The Dead. So how did you guys get together? What happened?
Well, it's because of Mike's podcast.
Yeah, I had a podcast called Amigos, and I got in touch to interview Oteil when The Dead were in town playing Madison Square Garden and Nassau Coliseum. And on a night in between, a day in between, we got together. Remember, it was only supposed to be about a half hour or so. And 2 hours later, we were like wiping tears away, kind of like, oh my God, did we just become brothers? I think.
You never had met before?
No.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
In fact, never even spoke before.
Wow.
And
about karma.
We connected on a Oteil, you put it the best, right? We've both had very mystical experiences, not drug related.
There is things like that without drugs. I didn't know.
And that came up very fast. That came up very fast.
Wow, that's amazing. And it has happened to me as well. And I only ascribe it to, reincarnation is real, okay? There's souls that know each other and they travel in pods and all that kind of stuff. I believe in it. So that's great. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, no, and then we talked about those experiences and then we said, we should do a podcast someday, but who's got the time? And then the world gave us the time.
Right. So, what about now? Things are a little different. I know, Oteil, aren't you out there right now?
I'm actually still home mostly. Mike is about to be slammed. Yeah,
we're both. Yeah, I mean,
but I have a tour coming up. It's going to get busy.
Yeah. But you can do it like this, so it doesn't matter. You just need an hour and somebody to help you. Yeah, you got somebody to help you plan.
We do.
Somebody, so
we really do.
Yeah, that's great. It's a marvelous thing. Just for me, just meeting, like I met you guys. I'm like, wow, what a great thing. You have this interchange and exchange going on at the same time, and it's just lovely to make new friends. That's all. Simple as that. Especially over the pandemic time when you weren't going many places. Now we're going out there a little bit tentatively, although that may be in jeopardy as well. God knows with our world, right? What about our world right now?
Perpetually, it feels that way to me. I'm like, when does it not feel like that? Although the pandemic is really, I guess, just exacerbated all the feelings and awareness. But, the impending climate crisis. I got young kids, so it's always right here. Like, wow, What are they inheriting? Holy crap!
Yeah, for me it's grandchildren, but yeah, same kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's scary.
And this war is there's not much words you can put to it, but certainly very disconcerting, and the amount of suffering is extraordinary.
Yeah.
We actually, I'm just thinking, I mean, we just put out something that we are aligned with Ukraine and we hope for peace and we look for that, whatever. It was just a nice note. The woman of the board of Love Serve Remember wrote. And I saw a couple of replies and went, well, wait a minute now. Yes, this is a really bad thing, but how about, do you know what's going on in Yemen? Do you know what's still going on in Syria? And start listing all the different places.
Haiti? I mean, Haiti is so close to where I am in Florida.
Yeah.
And I went with my wife. And you're like, how is this? And, we've been to Africa and India and places where there's some extreme poverty. Haiti's like as bad as anything I've ever seen. I'm like, how are we letting that go on like that close? Like, do we really care? I don't think so.
Well,
and when I say we, I don't mean people, I mean the government. So when we talk about America, there's the land, there's the people, and there's the government.
That's a big rabbit hole. Boy, oh boy. Being that I'm from Canada, I look askance and at the same time, it's not a lot of difference in terms of what was done oppressing people up north or down south. So, that seems
the Native Americans didn't have so great up there.
No. So it's a tough thing, and thank God for humor and music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of we got together. By the way, these guys, everybody were pretty interested just to chat about Ram Dass and stuff that interested them around consciousness and so on. And that's how we got together. Yeah. And it was a lovely thing. And I think I mentioned it last time that one thing that Ram Dass constantly referred to was music and humor.
Yeah.
As a big part of the path. For us, it's, I have to say, right at the very top.
For me too.
And both things are so available for anyone, and we are all open to music and humor, and the way at which can help transform lives is pretty incredible. Yeah, Mike, talk about how what you went through to even realize there was something else other than being beat over the head with a lead pipe called society and parental control and school systems, etc.
Wow. Talk about a rabbit hole. I think I was always looking for a place to belong. I think personally, like I always felt like I had one foot out the door with everything I was doing or everywhere I was. I moved a lot as a kid and tried to just sort of never settle into one place, always be ready to kind of bounce if I have to, and it through, I've kind of forced certain religious, like had to go to church, had to be involved with, altar boy, had to be involved with youth group, had to be involved with all this, and I couldn't get away from it fast enough. But once I started to realize that there was, I always had a feeling that there was something just right there. Like there's always somewhere just right here that I don't really get yet. We talk about it sometimes how it's like you're looking at a magic eye puzzle, but you can't see it until it is ready to be seen, I think. And, through the music, through the Grateful Dead, and through some of that scene and getting on the road and meeting like-minded people and being open to a community and a family and friendship really helped me so much to realize like that, there's loneliness and there's being alone. And sometimes when you're with 1,000 people, you could be the loneliest you've ever been. And if you're alone, sometimes you're more connected with the universe than ever. And I think that was something that I kind of had to figure out for myself and get used to, for sure. and the teachings of, Ram Dass and as others, really kind of gave me that like understanding that like I always felt like I needed to know everything all the time, and it's what a silly thing to try to shoot for,
Yeah, we're like plants, I mean, it's like you're a caterpillar walking around, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, what's happening, and then all of a sudden you're in a cocoon, and then you've come out and you got to fight, and you're a butterfly. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
It's
The
just
worst
the
thing is-
timing's not yours.
Yeah, the worst thing is when they give you a name. As soon as they give you that name,
That's right.
that's all.
Yeah.
It's all downhill from there.
Did we tell you when you came on about how right before the pandemic, Oteil and I almost got run over by a truck?
No.
Surreal.
Tell me.
Oteil, you were, what was it? Right before the Almonds played?
Madison Square Garden, yeah, that's right. And we're coming down the street, and there's this big, huge, just like, it's a fence, but it's like a wrought iron gate or whatever. Like it was too high to even climb over. And this guy's coming, just flying down the street, and the truck's like this, and the front, like left wheel, driver's wheel, the tire's gone. And it's just sparks, and it looks like flames just shooting out. And he's just careening. And we're looking like there's nowhere to go. Like either he's going to hit us or he's not. And we're both like, are we about to die right now? Like, and then he just makes this turn, a sharp turn that I didn't think he could make because he was making a right and his left front tire was gone.
Oh, shit.
And so he makes the turn, and the sparks are just flying around. And we were like, okay, that's an omen about something. Like, that's just a near miss. Like, we just experienced almost dying together, like the closest either of us have ever come. And I just was like
the first time we hung out, basically. That was how it ended.
That's an interesting moment.
And then
Way
the
to get to
pandemic
know one
happened.
another.
Yeah.
We literally looked at each other and were like, well, we lived for a reason, I guess. So
Yeah. Oh, God, that reminds me of this story, which I've told often before. It always stands repeating. There was one of our mentors. His name was K.K. Shah. He was Ram Dass's Indian brother. He was the first translator with Neem Karoli Baba, the Man in the Blanket, and he was the one who brought him back to his house in that for those first moments that he met him. So he remained very close. I mean, we have a trove of letters back and forth that are. You read these letters, you're a puddle in about 5 minutes. It's just pretty amazing. He was an amazing being, and we spent a lot of time with him. His name is K.K. Shah, and he went to a gathering called a Mela in India, Kumbh Mela, where there's millions of people in Allahabad, where the three rivers come together, the Ganga, the Yamuna, and
That's where our daughter is from. We adopted a girl from Allahabad.
Allahabad?
And when we got there, we found out how sacred a spot it was. We were like, cool. We didn't know that at all.
Absolutely. We spent a lot of time there because Maharaji used to stay with another devotee there. So the several years that we knew him, we spent time there.
It's a big story that happened around that too, right? Something about he knew they were coming and all that. Yeah. All right. I don't want to sidetrack you though.
Well, there's always all these great stories. But this in particular related to what happened where you missed buying it all, as they say, by very, very little. So anyhow, KK went there and he was out on a boat on the river with Neem Karoli Baba and the boatmen. And they went out some ways. So it's a confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna, and the Saraswati is the third invisible river. So Maharaji says, KK. He didn't call him KK, actually, but jump out of the boat into the river. And KK, who, he couldn't swim. Many Indian people cannot swim. And he said, no, I can't do that, I'm afraid. No. He said, just jump. No, I don't know how to swim. I can't do it. And then Maharaji pointed to a bridge about, a couple of football fields down that crossed the river. He said, if you know, and we're talking a few hundred feet up, if you jumped from that bridge, you cannot die unless it absolutely is your moment. It's nothing can happen. So KK started thinking, oh God, I'm with my guru here, and you know, it's like a big sign of distrust rather. So he finally said, okay, I'll jump. So he grabbed his nose and he jumped in so the water wouldn't get in. Came up to his knees, the water.
That's cold, man.
Yeah.
The trickster guru.
Yeah, right. Exactly that. Exactly that. But now I tell this story. I've told it many times. Every time I do, it's just a reinforce of, sitting around. It's having awareness that we are timed out. We are perishable. Is as Don Juan from the Carlos Castellanos books. I'm not sure if you know those books.
Yeah.
Way of the Yaqui. And he used to talk about keep death on your left shoulder. In other words, keep present that you are going to really inhabit every moment and not be lost in the past or the future. That is what that means. And then this reality that keeping that in perspective, and you're not going to be looking to be in fear all the time, around potentially passing. And that's as a young person or an old person. It doesn't really matter. It's good to get going when you're young, I think. Anyhow, so that, no way you were going to get popped by that truck. No way.
My mom told me that because she was a labor and delivery and emergency room nurse for 37 years. I don't know, a really long time. And she just saw flat out miracles. I mean, she was a sciencey person, but she was like, there's a baby that was dead for an hour, a solid hour, and it came back. She was like, that's just not possible.
Yeah.
When you shut down for a certain amount of time and then the brain shuts and all this, she's like, it's not possible. But there we go.
Yeah.
And she said what she learned from that and the many other things, she was like, when it's your time, it's your time. But when it's not, it's not. You could be in a plane crash and walk away if it's not your time. Yeah. So don't worry about it, Yeah. I think about that now more now that I have kids, because I think, God, if something happens to me, which I never thought about, what would I miss? So I'm just like, okay, so just savor. Just roll it around your mouth till it melts. Don't chew one time.
I like that. Speaking of the story of the baby from the hospital, this past weekend, I actually I watched a seminar with a man, Raymond Moody. He's an older man now that he is the expert on near-death experience, NDEs. You've heard of that?
Yeah, well, we just had Jeffrey Mishlove and Stefan A. Schwartz on, so we were talking about that stuff.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, okay, I heard this. This guy, and they were with a couple of younger colleagues and so on, and he has done like thousands and thousands of interviews with people who've had near-death experience. Just amazing. And he said, I'm going to show you a video. It's a new thing called shared near-death experience. And I was like, I wonder what that is.
Whoa.
So he said, watch this video of a man who was in a critical car accident. And I'm telling you that this convinced me more than the actual near-death experience stories, which I was convinced, but this was the topper. And you know what it was? So he's in the ER, they're trying to keep him alive. His wife had died. His son made it through a really horrific car crash. Okay, and this is the guy talking, and he said, "My wife came to me and said, you got to go back." So he was halfway down, through the tunnel. All of the stuff that is corroborated by thousands of people. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you have to take care of our son, basically. So that's what happened to him. And he had the NDE. Then the guy sitting next to him said, here's what happened to me. I'm a doctor. I was in the hospital. And somebody said to me, there's this very intense thing going on. Would you come into the ER? And he did. And he got in the ER. He apparently could see this man's wife communicating with him.
Wow.
And knew what it was that
Jeez.
Convinced Dr. Moody. And I went, whoa, okay, that is talk about the absolute reality of interconnectedness with every molecule. I mean, it is.
But see, all of us have had this thing. The whole reason Mike and I did this podcast together is because I told him about a mystical experience that happened to me that absolutely convinced me. And he told me about a mystical experience that happened to him that absolutely convinced him. And I was like, let's talk about that. Yeah. And now after a year, it's laser focusing on just that. We have musicians, comedians, and the conversation always gets back to the heavy stuff. Right. But now it's just this, because this stuff, it's based on experience. And if you haven't experienced it, there's nothing I could explain to you. It's like, but if you experienced it, you'll never not know it. Nobody could ever tell you you're crazy or talk you out of it or whatever. You're like, no, man. Yeah. I tell you one that just happened. My brother passed away 3 years ago. His oldest childhood friend came and spoke at the funeral. His dad had passed away from cancer. So we're talking, and I say, how you doing? He goes, man, the subject got around to Kofi, my brother. He said, yeah, Kofi and my dad are still around. They came to me in a dream about a week ago. I was like, really? He said, yeah. And it was really weird because they were very specific what they told me. They said, go get your PSAs checked. He was
that's
okay, So he hasn't seen his regular doctor in 2 years because of COVID. So he makes an appointment to go see her. And she says, you look great. He goes, hey, can I get my PSAs checked? And she goes, why? Like, you're not due for that for another year. And he said, well, can you just humor me? And so she said, what happened? He told her and she laughed at him. And he goes, can you just humor me? So she did it. I think he might have had to pay for it. I don't know if insurance doesn't cover it unless you have to wait till the time is up or whatever. Yeah. He's like, just do it. She calls him back immediately the day, go see your urologist right now. Like, he had the exact same cancer his dad died of. Now, he had 5 different options for treating this cancer. He was down to 2. And if it had gone on for another year, he'd probably be out of here. So it's just like, and he built my brother's first computer. Talk about a sciencey guy, right? Right. I mean, this is way back, right? Yeah. And you'll never not convince him. Forget it, man. It saves his life. Just recently, he just got the
Talk about practical application of mystical experience. But
such a specific thing, right? Aren't they? Aren't they? When you look back on it, you go, oh, that was totally practical.
And what's such an interesting thing, too, and such an important piece is that, even like with Oteil and I, the thing that meant so much to me was that we never met before. We were an hour and a half into knowing each other, and I shared probably one of the more powerfully vulnerable and confusing moments that I've ever had. And I just because I felt like I somehow knew that it was okay to tell him that. And then he connected with it from something that he had experienced too. And it was like oh, wow, like I can actually talk to another man about, I don't have to feel crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's super important. It was
Right.
like just to be able to, when you experience these things is one thing, but I wonder how many people experience these things and have no idea how or who to talk to about, to talk with about it. And that's a
it's
terrible
an issue. It's an issue, which is
Yeah.
why the foundation, Love Serve Remember Foundation, absolutely goes out and supports fellowships around the country and the world, for that matter. I mean, that's a mission. That's something, because people, especially with what's gone on here in the last couple of years, it's definitely a mission so people can meet with each other. Like there's a Gita course going on right now that Ram Dass did at Naropa that we just started in 1974. It's a phenomenal course. And then part of what happened, there's teachers that get on every week and extemporize over the theme, and of course all of the wonderful files from back then that we have that we cleaned up and all that. And then what's the highlight for many people is getting on a Zoom together like this, except with hundreds of people, and being able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. You guys just hit the mother lode, karmically, that suddenly there you are together and realizing the way in which the openness, it seems like you both have, really fit. It was just a beautiful fit, and that's a very fortunate thing in this life. And by the way, for me, it's not about. This kind of thing, getting a dream like that. I've had that happen to me as well. I think I told you my son was almost dead, sick in the hospital. And I got a dream. Neem Karoli Baba came to me and said, "Yeah, no, he'll be okay by tomorrow." And I went to the hospital and he was okay. Wow. So these things happen, and they are obviously major. But I think of like the ineffable kinds of things that happen to most people, if they're able to be open enough and they haven't been manipulated so hard by parental or church or synagogue, whatever it is. And we all, once that opens up, we have a chance to be able to hear each other in a much different way.
Yeah.
As long as you trust that. That's my biggest thing for people is you get a hold of that ineffable experience. Remember what it was and trust it. And then it'll lead you intuitively to the next thing that is needed to open up more, become, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, kinder, more compassionate. That's what it's about. Not studious in any of the... the deeper teachings.
I feel very fortunate to have found someone to be able to drive an hour out and back from New York City and late night, just kind of like rapping and talking. And I don't know where I would have been, honestly. It's and it's important because, we've had interesting conversations and there's such synchronistic, we both had Uncle Billies in our life that like our dads were, I had an experience where my uncle had cancer and I had to go on the road for about 3 or 4 weeks to do shows. And I told my family, I don't want to know when he goes. Like if I'm on the road, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it. If I'll go say my goodbyes before I leave or hopefully, And I had a dream that I was walking by on the side of a lake, on the shore of a lake, and it was nighttime. And my whole family was there. And an aunt walks by and she goes, "Go check on your uncle." And I turn and my uncle walks right by me and he's standing nice and tall and proud and dressed sharp, looks great. And he blows right by me and walks towards the water. And I immediately popped up and I knew he had passed away. And I called my sister and I said, "Is Uncle Bill still with us?" And she goes, "No, it was like about a half hour ago he died." And I told her the dream I had near the lake and everything. And she goes, "You got to be kidding me." She said, "From his hospice window, I'll send you a picture of what we're looking at. And it was this sunrise coming up over the lake. And it was like exactly where I was in the dream and the whole, even the angle of it and everything. And it's just such an unbelievable, he came to say, I feel like he came to say goodbye to me, and that's not something that I don't, I don't think I've told that before we talked about it this year or whatever. And then it's like, oh, it's okay to tell something like, it's okay to talk about that. And it feels good to be able to, because then you realize, wow, other people have had experiences similar.
Absolutely.
Sure.
No, that's a gift. That's
It
a
is.
gift to people.
It's the best, man. I love, we were so lucky to have Stanley Krippner on.
Oh my God.
And he said, the reason that I do this and I've been so passionate about it is because I know that people will pathologize these experiences, or someone else will pathologize it for them.
Yeah.
And he said, when we were in training as very young students in psychology, psychiatry, he said, our teacher told us, if you dream in color, then you're schizophrenic. And he looked at all his friends. He was like, we're all bunkers, And he was like, this is crazy. Like, so he just immediately didn't accept, he's like, that's crazy. Come on. So I love that. And I love that about, what a gift it was for the pandemic to have a podcast and be able to just connect. That's the best thing.
Yeah.
And in this way, especially,
Yeah, absolutely.
And none of it was forced. I mean, I think one of the beautiful things that we were able to do going into it was that, we didn't go into it thinking about the numbers or the ratings or whatever. We wanted to get in touch with the people that we felt we needed or that we maybe could benefit from talking to. And then lo and behold, the people who... there were people that wanted to hear from those people too, and they ended up being some of the messages of how grateful people were for just some of the guests that we had, that we were so excited to yourself. I mean, there are so many amazing people that we had.
I can't believe it.
Oh my God. I mean, when we were putting together our wish list, you were on the top, but we're not yet. I don't think he'd want to do our little podcast just yet.
Can't even ask yet.
Okay. Ram Dass is so great because he really voices the worst bullshit that you have in your head. And I just was sharing this, but I did. So, just the idea of, oh, yeah, wow, I was on the top of their list, whatever. Very little lift do I get from that, but I still, mindfulness go, oh, that's interesting. But then I did a podcast with Ram Dass, right? What's Ram Dass all about? That tremendous honesty. It's okay. You can be human. Look at the fuck-upness I have done, and I don't take it as seriously. It's okay. That kind of thing changed my whole life, because it was all like this horrific light shining back on that we all do, judging, You are a shitheel. And just, you're a sinner. Okay, that's it.
That's why confession is so powerful.
Yeah, right.
If you can admit it, then there's a lot. Half the chains come off of you,
Yeah.
And somebody loves you in spite of it.
Here's what Ram Dass said. I couldn't believe it. I'm introducing one of his talks, right? And it said, he said, I'm very happy being an arrogant, confused charlatan who has lost God. So everyone goes, oh, okay, we're okay. So I think of that, and being puffed up in any way, whatever goes on, relationship with, our guru and Ram, all of it. It's just a bunch of horse shit. And that's the beauty of it is really that Ram Dass gave us, is that ability to be honest and not take so serious, which is why my humor is so absolutely important in all of this.
Yeah, it really is.
And that's, the greatest comics. You see that, okay, we don't need to take ourselves so seriously because look at us. We're a complete fuck up. Look at Larry David, by the way, who is my favorite
great.
of all
Amazing.
favorites.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he just does it all day long. I mean, it's just, it's so great. It's not great when my girlfriend starts to call me Larry, though. It's not so good.
But finding the right mate that you can accept when they just call you out, that is like the most valuable thing on earth. Because my wife, she could just be like, dude, no. Oh, please no. And I'm just like, all right. I just accept,
Yeah, that's so
you
great.
know when they're right.
Okay, we can't go any further here, and we have to ask you, Oteil, about the Dead. How the hell did you end up playing bass for the Dead? Okay, I mean, because I was there, back in the day, right? And
what was your first year that you saw him?
Yeah, I'm wondering this too.
I was late. It was 1967. I was a year too late.
I was 3 in 67.
You were 3?
I was negative
Did
12.
they take you out to see the Dead?
Oh, no. My
No.
parents are like hardcore jazz heads.
Oh, okay. Well,
I actually think they didn't even know who the Grateful Dead was. There's a
Oh,
really good chance that they didn't know.
well,
They're from the Bronx,
listen, I'm all with your parents, okay? Never mind. It's Dead are great, all that stuff, but I was a major jazz head at that time. When I was in high school, I was going to the 5 spot, right? Mingdis, Sonny Rollins,
Wow.
the
that
whole
was the
thing.
time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. I was that was my taste was that. It wasn't,
That was my dad's religion, man, was that,
Yeah.
But
then we
and
would get
when
on.
I grew up with that. I'm actually a jazz drummer. I picked up bass just because it's a
You're kidding.
convoluted story, but I picked up my
I didn't
brother's
see any
electric
of that
bass.
in the notes they gave me.
Well, I still play, I always played the drum solo with the drummers in the Allman Brothers Band. And I always play the drum solo with Bill and Mickey in the
He's an
Dead.
anointed rhythm devil.
I'm an actual rhythm devil. But
He got horned.
yeah, so when I was coming up, my thing was more like jazz rock fusion, like all the guys that played with Miles that started playing electric.
Yeah.
And then
All of-
the funk guys and all that stuff. And I met this crazy alien named Colonel Bruce Hampton when I was 24.
You talked about when I came on you guys' podcast.
Yeah, and my whole life took a left. And that's when I really got into the older folk musics, like the roots of all American music, the old blues, jazz, funk, country, bluegrass, like all the folk musics. And then I didn't see it at the time, but that's what prepared me for the Allman Brothers gig. And then when I got that gig, I was with them for like 17 years. So we played with, people from the Dead sat in with us. Phil had sat in with us. Bob had sat in with us. And there's this overlap because the Dead and the Allman Brothers played together. And Colonel Bruce was tight with both of them. Dwayne Allman got Colonel Bruce his first record deal on Capricorn. And Colonel Bruce was also tight with Pigpen.
No.
Yeah, when we had Steve Parrish on our podcast, he was reminiscing about Colonel Bruce, and I'm thinking it's more recent. And then I was like, oh, he's talking about like 1969. I was like, he's like, yeah, I remember all that. I was just like, wow. So there was all that, me and Colonel Bruce's first bass player, the bass player with that band, it was called the Hampton Grease Band, and when he was hanging out with the Dead and the Almonds. That guy, Mike Holbrook, me and him have the same birthday. And the drummer in that band is now the head of the Grammys, Mike Green. So it's like and with Colonel Bruce, there's so many synchronicities and just it goes on and on and on. And that's how I got with the Dead, because it just was like, I had a plan for my life and God had another plan.
Yeah, right.
And I went with the flow and it turned out just fine.
But he was also influential spiritually, right?
Oh, huge. The first book he ever gave me, I was so just confused and scared, terrified of this planet. You know, I was like 24 when I met. And he had this song called Basically Frightened. And it just like, I was like, yeah. And he said, yeah, if you're not if you're not frightened of all this stuff that's going on, you are crazy. You know what I mean? So the first book he ever gave me was the Book of the Tao.
Oh, wow.
And I'm really grateful for the translation that it was, because from reading it, I'm sure the different translations, like one could just, you're like, huh? And then another one is just like an arrow right through the forehead.
What's the one that, just because we're doing this, it'd be good, we'll put it up in the show notes. People can get a
The one I'm
copy of
into is, I think his name is Stephen Hastings. I wrote it, I did an audiobook last time. And I just go back over and over.
So Stephen Hastings.
I think that's his name. I'll look at my Audible account.
we'll get the show notes. People will take care of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So there I was. Back to the Dead. Yeah. There I was, and then I saw them in Montreal actually the first time with the airplane of all things.
Your Jack.
Yeah. And then I was living out on the West Coast, and there was, I'm not sure if you guys remember, before there was Winterland, Bill Graham, I think with the Dead and maybe another band, I'm not quite sure I remember correctly, but it was called the Carousel Ballroom. Yeah. Not the Avalon Ball, that was Chet Helms. Yeah. This was Bill. And so the greatest bands that we have all ever heard of, every week at the Carousel, we would go there. We were not looking to see, so-and-so's there. The Dead's there. Let's go. We just went as a ritual. Can you imagine that every weekend? Incredible. And there was the Dead, 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, holy Jesus, and we have imbibed in many different ways, and so had they, and that's what was going on. That was the Haight-Asbury days. And then later, somewhat later, once I had met Ram Dass, we went, so Ram Dass spent a lot of time with the Dead, right? And he was, close to Owsley, and Owsley did sound and acid, and we went, and they had this is reminiscing, folks, a little bit about those wonderful days and horrible days. They were both. And so the Dead were playing, and in the Cow Palace, actually, and it was the Wall of Sound. I'm sure you know of the Wall of Sound. I have never, ever heard anything as loud in my entire life, but not bad loud, good loud. Owsley had advised whoever the sound guy was into a double mic system so that they had the wall behind them, the double mic, so that it canceled feedback. And I was with people who couldn't stay there. The bass was inside you and vibrate. I'm telling you, it was extraordinary. And Ram Dass is backstage, not backstage, on the other side of the wall. I mean, talking about 35 foot high across the whole stage. Yeah. And he's with acid, and all the crew, and they're on, I don't know how many micrograms of acid, but
far too many.
But not for, and there we are, and Jerry Garcia took off. Sometimes he used to really take off.
Yeah, man.
And in this case, it was like into astral plane after astral plane. It was unbelievable. And honestly, I wasn't the biggest Dead fan. The way, I never traveled, followed, none of that stuff. But in the moments and I did see them quite a bit. As I said, they played there a lot, and I was just going down there. So that is my experience. So in the research for hanging out with you guys, somebody gave me, Ganesh, that Ram Dass wrote a eulogy for Jerry when he died. Have you ever
Wow.
seen that?
No, I have
Whoa,
not.
No.
I have not.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to
getting
read
goosebumps.
it. Yeah,
me too.
It's
Wow.
pretty unbelievable. It's called Jerry's Gone. Jerry's dead. An era has ended, and here we are still. All these years, the dead concerts have been spirit made manifest, deep connections into living, vibrant love. Now the high priest has split. The Tao Te Ching, the Tao, speaks of the best leader as one who leaves the people thinking they did it all themselves. Jerry was that kind of leader. He turned the power back to the people. He and the band, they have never really bought into quote-unquote superstardom. They have seen themselves more as catalysts in the magical mix of the moment that allowed each person at the gathering to feel safe enough to become self-luminous.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Me too.
Wow.
So now Jerry has dropped his body, and here we are, still. Through him and his mythic playmates came the sound that connected us to our deeper selves. This was our spiritual practice, our doorway, genuinely ours, and it worked. Now Jerry isn't, and we are still. So has all that free-form ecstasy that we garnered from an otherwise shadow world transformed us or made us more free? Has it just left us as a group of sad, grateful dead addicts in withdrawal? For sure, we will grieve the monumental loss of our friend Jerry for a long, long, long time. Most likely, we will go through some powerful depression and despair, and we may even court cynicism. After all, it's not easy to lose your connection. But Jerry's legacy to us is more profound than all of that. He is in us, just as we have been in him. We have all been not a tribe or a family, but a bubble of awareness riding upon the ocean of sound that is in and beyond the sounds we hear.
Wow.
Where did you come up with that? Now it's up
That's so
to
good.
us to co-create other safe spaces where we can listen to what Jerry heard and to allow our love light to shine. Jerry is gone in one form, but like the magician that he has explosively been transformed into a million Jerrys. One improvising in each of our hearts. Jerry, we express our gratefulness by becoming the memory of you.
Wow.
This was published in
That's great.
95. It's from Garcia, Grateful Celebration by Dupree's Diamond News.
Dupree's Diamond News. I got to check that out. I like
Yeah.
that.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Anyhow, how about that?
Amazing. I finally found out what my job title is. Mythic
What?
Playmate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's no dead cover bands with that name, there's going to be 10 now after.
Oh shit! Don't even. This isn't going out for a bit, so yeah, write that down and get that fucking URL now.
Mythic
phenomenal.
Playmate.
That's
Yeah,
so
man.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Really is.
It's like from that movie Soul. What was it? Mystics Without Borders. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you catch that yet, Raghu? Have you
No.
seen it?
Oh
no,
man.
Mystics Without Borders.
No, it's
haven't.
called
Dude.
Soul. It's a Disney. It's a Pixar.
Oh, Soul. Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Oh,
I saw that. Oh, so
okay,
that's
yeah.
in. Right. I do. know
Yeah.
that, yeah. I like the bubble thing here. Where was that? That was really. I mean, he must have really. He came
Well,
up with this.
I'm
A
always
bubble of awareness riding
Bubble of
upon the ocean of sound that is in and beyond the sounds we hear here.
ear here.
Ear here.
Ear here.
Good.
That's really neat.
He who has an
Be
ear,
ear
let
here.
him hear. Be ear here.
Oh,
Man, I imagine there must have just been times when you're sitting there listening to him and you're like, where is this coming from? Like, how on earth is this? It's just like just a river of just consciousness and thought and words that would come through Ram Dass. Like, I just loved his patience. Like, that's really one of the things that I have found. We were talking about comedy recently, and like the comedy I love is the comedy where you can like appreciate the silence. Like when you're starting out, you're like, silence is the scariest thing in the world. But when you can like take a breath and let the room settle and all of that, listening to Be Here Now and listening to his talks and the pauses he would take and just how much intent he had on each word, like so incredible.
Yeah.
Really, really like
took his time.
Yeah. And all these different sound bites from Be Here Now on, that we find in his talks. I mean, having to do what I do still uncover these gems, but when he was alive, I used to say, "Oh shit, I just found this thing you said. It's unbelievable." And I'd read it to him or something, and he'd go, "Wow, that's pretty good." Like it wasn't him.
But I don't think it is. Like, when I'm playing music,
yeah,
you hear it's the things that just are screaming out that you pull down. So I'm just pulling it down into this plane.
Yeah.
I don't think and I'm sure when you're like, it's just like religious people call it being in the spirit, or you could call it flow state or whatever.
Yeah.
We all get messed up with these semantics.
Yeah.
But it's that thing, and I'm sure he probably is like, wow, that was badass.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knew I had that in me?
Yeah. By the way, just to say, again, and going through stuff, Oteil, listen to you sing Comes a Time. There's some, I got a link. It was really, really wonderful. And then you had the good fortune of having a pretty good guitar player playing the solo with you. Jesus, I know John's work, but because I was paying more attention right here, in that particular, I really love that song. Boy, he's good.
Yeah.
John.
Jeez. I love his karma with the Grateful Dead. And I love all of the Deadheads and the band's karma with him. Because it's the fans' karma with him is just as important as his karma with the band.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like the island of misfit toys in our world. He's a pop star.
Yeah.
When he came on, I said, he said, after the pandemic, he came on the podcast. He goes, well, I just made an album that all the Deadheads are going to hate. And I said, well, being a pop star is waving your freak flag over here, so it's all good. Like, it's just all to teach us about judgment. Because, of course, when it was announced that he was going to be Jerry, we're like, what? No, say it isn't so, right? And it's just like, remember when he came out wearing, they call it your body's a tablecloth, that's the outfit, the shorts and the top that looked like a picnic blanket? And he was like, he's like, what are they going to say? Look how they're dressed. They can't say anything to me. And I was just like, this is great. This is just how God balances out the force, him and Bob have the same birthday.
No.
To throw a little synchronicity in there that Colonel Bruce hit me to.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a karma. There's a heavy karma. It's really funny. I love it.
That's so good. Wow. I don't know if you know Justin Beretta, Glitch Mob. Do you know that band?
Mm-mm.
They're one of the top electronic bands in the country. And we've been working with him. He's been putting soundtracks to Ram Dass meditation. You would dig it, actually, both of you.
Nice.
Check him out. It's Beretta, Boreta on Spotify. Beretta Ram Dass, Beretta times Ram Dass.
Okay.
They are quite fantastic.
That sounds great.
And we've been working with him on different things. And he said something that really struck me. What Ram Dass was saying reminds me of how he was presenting the material that he wanted to share with people. It reminds me of the Grateful Dead. Because it's not about the band, and it's not about the crowd, and it's not a give or take. It's about it all together, the oneness, exploring behind identity to that place of pure awareness, which is what Ram Dass was saying in this memorial to Jerry, right? It's beyond the subject-object. It is being love rather than doing love, back and forth. Yeah. Isn't that a great thing? And isn't that what it's all about? I mean, Mike, I'm sure you'd experienced it too, just being with people, doing your a session in terms of a comedy act.
Oh, absolutely. And even just being in the crowd at concerts and being a part of, that's where all my free time is spent. It is in the audience cheering on the band. I mean, you said comedy is a medicine for people. Music is mine. And it's just as equally as powerful, and it's so fun to kind of be able to, when you see a collective, whether you're part of the crowd or on stage, just to see everybody just enjoying that moment and feeling it. And there's a lot of really incredible Jerry Garcia interviews that I just absolutely love to watch him talk. There's one from, I believe, 76. There was a show called I think it was on San Francisco television. And it was a very mellow chat with Jerry, but it was more about how he kind of, he's more interested in the collective experience. Like, he's a conduit because the guy's like, you'd figure you kind of would be more of like a heavy, hip dude. You're like head of the counterculture move, and Jerry was kind of giggling like,
head of the counterculture.
Stop, like all bashful, and he's just like, no, I'm more about like the larger collective community experiences. And, for the folks that are there, it happens. And then we're on to the next one. And I think that's something that is very important about the Grateful Dead and the whole, mythos behind it. It's kind of that, today's today and tomorrow's going to be tomorrow, and we're going to do our best at today, and tomorrow we're going to do it again, and it's going to be different than today, but that's okay. And if you're along for the ride, and you appreciate the differences and stuff, like, that's a really brave and vulnerable and honest way of going about it, and he said he had no interest in sort of being let's go do our act 80 nights a week, a year or whatever. And that's what I love about him so much is I love watching Jerry talk, because it's about the music, it's about the craft, and it's about the crowd experience, not him getting off being, up there shredding and all that. So,
I went to my first bluegrass festival. The thing that tripped me out the most was that at least half, probably more than half of the audience, all showed up with their instruments. Oh. And they were all over the parking lot and everywhere else, all playing. Like, there's music going on the big stage, but all over the place, everybody was playing. And I thought, wow, this is a different thing. Like, there's not what Ornette Coleman called it. I just saw this interview. He said, I want to get rid of the caste system of sound. And I was
That's
like, dude,
great.
that is it. That is so Colonel Bruce, and so just like the way folk musics are taught. Like, it's not taught in a school. It's taught by everybody. Pick up an instrument and you play along, just the way you learn to speak. And so it's always the collective, like Black Church. Like, okay, Aretha's going to sing lead, but everybody's singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all involved.
And you've been to India. That's how it is there. Everybody, doesn't matter. You can't sing, you just on key, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's
all the cultures, most of the cultures, like when I saw that documentary on LSD, and they were talking about, it's only in our culture it doesn't happen. Like, everybody else has the music, the ecstatic dance, the bright clothes, the whatever. Just like, they went to this whole thing about the Sufis. And they were getting just beat up by the really right-wing Muslims because they're like, what's all this music and bright colored clothes? And I was like, they're the hippies. They're like the Islamic hippies. I was like, oh my God. And as they talked about all the other cultures that had it built into their religions and their society, I was like, wow, that's what the Grateful Dead is for this culture here that kind of does it all in academia, you know. And I was like, yeah, they just had to bust out of that. Their spirit couldn't be contained by that. And they just did it.
Yeah, all fostered by the 60s. The whole vibe that was going on, which, you know, there's a very similar vibe going on right now in terms of oppression, for sure. Yeah. And war and all of it. Yeah, well, you know, and all, I think everything we've been talking about here speaks to the collective. How we get together as a collective in so many different ways, using our trust in the ineffable, trust in our mystical experience, as we were speaking to in the very beginning. And out of that comes what Ram Dass calls, you know, with the awareness that's... it's not about being a tribe and a family and having a great name, you know, and projection, but it's a bubble of awareness riding upon the ocean of the one, basically, right?
The one.
Ocean of the one. And we share that. So that's, you know, that's really, although we're kind of at the end here, Oteil particularly, we did this a little bit when I came on to Comes a Time. Just the love of Coltrane is so important to me, and that I can share that with you in particular, you know, because I know you've written different things about John and you know, around his work and particularly the thing you talked about, his evolution when he was going into the void. And atonal land and I had a hard time with that, by the way.
I think most people did. I didn't get it till Colonel Bruce, honestly, and then I realized, oh, it's a human thing. It's like connecting with this bubble of awareness. Like notes are not enough, words are not like we know words are not enough. So why would we think key signatures and chord structure is enough? It's not enough. When your mom dies, you cry. You're not going to cry in key or in a structure, right? It's gonna, right? And that's what. So he always was trying to get to that human thing, which can't be. It's got to go beyond all that, and it's not even music, honestly. I remember Wayne Shorter talking about that when he was talking about Coltrane. He was like, it's a heart situation, you know, but he was trying to work that out through the music. That's why I said I need two things from music, joy or exorcism, or both at different times, because that's what, you know, we're either savoring that joy and sharing it, or we're trying to get these damn demons out. You know? That's where they won't go. And that he was at the exorcism part. You know?
Right. Amazing. We're going to have in the show notes links to, you know, let's link up a few of Coltrane's albums. Of course, my favorite things, I don't remember which album it's on, but it's probably on more than one. He's probably got live albums with it on. Find a live album out there, okay? You guys, show note guys.
So good.
That has my favorite things, you know, that'll bring me right back into it. What the power. Hey, what a power. Music.
And it's true. It's really, but I wish... I guess probably because of my dad's, you know, my dad had these guys up on a pedestal. He saw them. My dad was born at 31 in New York, so he saw all that stuff happen, you know, but because he didn't get the Grateful Dead and like looked on all rock music as just like, you know, I think I inherited that bias from him, but now I hear like, you don't have to be on acid, whether Jerry was on acid or not. Whenever he had those moments of just like letting it out, it's all tapping into and coming from that same place.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, none of these guys could really help it. They were just conduits and catalysts, and you know, we're just lucky to be alive when they were, you know.
Yeah, and we all are in one way or another.
And we're so lucky now to have such pristine recordings. Like the entire Europe 72 tour is out there to listen to in crystal clear quality. And some of the places they go during Dark Stars in that era are way long and very like interwoven with drums and stuff. And some of that is just right up there with all of the most improvisational jazz music that, I mean... It's so good.
It's soul music.
It really
not
is.
Not the, you know,
but like
quote
you said,
unquote
soul
music.
It's going nowhere and everywhere all at the same time.
Yes. Thank you guys for hanging out here with me. Mike,
truly an honor.
Man, thank you. We were like totally flipping out. We're such fans,
man.
We have to catch up in person at some point, huh?
I hope you'll be at a Dent Company show when we come out to the West Coast.
Are you Are you going out on tour again?
Yes, we are. They have not announced the tour dates, but we are.
You are.
It'll be soon.
Outside. Are we doing some outside?
Only outside. I don't think.
Only outside. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're only outside.
Yeah. All right. I'm absolutely. I'm looking forward. And Mike, if you're out here on tour, you know, let me know.
Be sure to
out
let
in the
you
West
know.
Coast. And
absolutely.
We'll just keep doing this, okay? Cause we just want to hang out. That's all.
That's right.
That's what this is all about. It really is. Let's
do it with Paul Stamets.
Okay, good idea. Good idea.
That just came to me for some reason.
Yeah, really?
I could just see him in a little square right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Just hanging out.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you so much.
This is Mindrolling on Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com and catch a plethora, as I always say, of incredible teachers and thought leaders, from Alan Watts to Ram Dass to Sharon Salzberg. Have you all listened to Sharon? Sharon is
amazing.
One of my greatest teachers and friends. I'm so lucky. And she does extempore real podcasts. Some of the other podcasts, it's not that they're not real, but we're bumpering. Ram Dass well, I introduce it, so I do spend some time extemporizing. But Sharon is phenomenal, and Jack Cornfield. So check it out, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys. Thanks again.